Hey everybody, welcome back. Another episode of season 2 of People Talking from a Social Distance. I once again have a wonderful guest who is going to enlighten all of us a little bit about themselves, both in the building and out. So today I have a wearer of many hats, a doer of many things. It's Sarah Ward.
Hi, how you
I'm
doing?
sorry, I'm sorry your intro kind of turned into something a carnival barker would say, but I'm trying to make them different each time. I'm excited you're here. We don't get to talk nearly as much as I'd like to, but I do want to start by just telling people I knew that Sarah and I would get along pretty early in our interaction when she told probably one of my favorite dead celebrity jokes ever. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I do not.
It was just randomly. We were talking and you were like, hey, do you know what type of wood doesn't float? Natalie. And I was like, this person is amazing. Like, this is someone I need to talk to more. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you took some time out to talk to us. We're gonna ask a couple questions and just sort of see where the conversation takes us. So I often find when talking to educators that education is real central to their identity. But if you were to find, or if you were to apply a label or some other term to yourself outside of educator, what would that label be and why?
I think for me, I don't know if people know this about me, but I tend to follow the Zodiac signs, not believing in reading it every day, and I don't look at my horoscope every day, but I do think there's something to where you're born, your birth order, some of those things. So I would say a thing that sort of permeates the rest of my existence is the fact that I am a firstborn Libra. And there's a lot of traits with Libra that I think I fall into. And, some of those big ones are fairness, balance, trying to make sure everybody's happy, lover of being with a lot of people and in big groups.
Right on. Yeah. And again, it's interesting because those traits all fit into what you do as an educator as well, right?
Right.
All fits into the same things. If you were to sort of think about the way that your career has sort of helped you sort of shape your passions, whether it's helped you learn more about them or embolden them, what are some of the ways that you think being in education has helped you to sort of grow other things that you're passionate about in your life?
I think for me, probably in my outside interests and in my love of travel, I have gained such a wealth of knowledge from my co-teachers, not so much from my actual special education teaching of the practices of teaching special education, but being able to be in a classroom of social studies and science and English and some of the electives. I've pretty much co-taught in every arena with the exception of math. As most of my coworkers know, no one wants me in a math classroom, but I have really taken away from those classroom experiences some really great things to see while I travel and to read about and to learn more of. And that has really, I think, expanded me as a person and as something that I have really taken away as a gift of my profession, that when I went into teaching, I didn't anticipate being a co-teacher. I don't know how many people know that I have a degree in elementary education, which isn't often a co-teaching experience. And I knew I wanted to be a special ed teacher, but Iowa didn't have an undergrad in that. So I had to come up with plan B. And plan B for me was L-Ed because it was the fastest route to grad school. In hindsight, I probably would have enjoyed doing a secondary education major and picking maybe English or social studies, but it just wasn't the quickest route to grad school for me at the time. And I really never anticipated enjoying being a high school English teacher or a social studies teacher or a science teacher as much as I actually did for all those experiences.
Have you ever taught the elementary level? Because I know I have a 6-12 degree, and I don't think I would ever go anywhere near middle school.
No, and I don't think anyone wants me in a fourth grade classroom. But I did student teach. Obviously, I did in my undergrad. I did a full semester of student teaching in fourth grade, and my classroom teacher actually fell and broke her ankle about 3 weeks in, and it was first semester. I graduated 3.5 years, so I did it in September till December. And in Iowa, you have to have a professional teaching license to sub. And the woman they brought me had never set foot in a classroom. She had a degree and that was it. And so I pretty much just took over and taught, which was fine. I learned a lot. I had a primarily Spanish speaking classroom and I had 6 years of French. So that was really helpful. But I that is the closest I ever came to having a classroom of my own at an elementary level.
And yeah, that's we had similar experiences in student teaching. I was at a private school, and my cooperating teacher was out for like the first week of my, or like 2 weeks of my my student teaching. And I was like, hey guys, like I'm not licensed. We should get someone in here. But Catholic school, they're like, someone's watching.
We don't care. Yeah, someone's watching. Yeah. My teacher was out for 8 weeks. So it was a very long, and the really hard thing for me was when she came back, because she'd only really been with the kids for about 3 weeks. They didn't like her. They were used to me, and she had to come in and do a whole new set of classroom management things with her group because I was leaving, and it was not pretty, but we got through it. Life lessons, right?
Yeah, totally. The next question I like to ask, and I think, so we tried to do this the first season, and I didn't get as many responses, so now I made it a requirement. I think, especially when we're away from each other and we're trying to be socially distant, I think a great way to sort of understand where people are coming from and sort of get to know them better is through the things they recommend. So I always ask for a recommendation, whether that's a book, a movie, a show, an album. Like, what's something that you think if people were to experience it, they would have a better understanding of the way you view the world and what you enjoy?
Yeah, when I read that question, when you initially had proposed that as something to talk about, I was thoughtful about having some great literary answer or some really smart recommendation, and that is probably not true to who I am. So I am a lover of reality television and cheesy books, and I think for me, when I'm done with work, my brain needs to just turn it off a little bit. And so I am happy to read. I love reading, and I am very interested in a wide range of subjects. But I think for me, the thing that I took away from thinking about, like, what's something about me that it's not so much a recommendation, but just a place in my life that I first time felt like these people are living my life in a way that it really helped me get through what I was doing in that moment. And it was I don't even know, 10 years, probably 10 years ago, Bill Rancic that won The Apprentice, very relevant with Trump right now, right? But and his wife Juliana Rancic, who it was on E, they had a reality television show that they were filming together about their life, and they were going through fertility treatments. And at the time, I was dealing with what they call secondary fertility issues. We had Isaac, and everything was fine, and then we had a really hard time getting pregnant. So I went through the whole process, including 4 rounds of IVF, which included medications and tons of doctor visits. There were people in the building. I was pretty open about it, and I continue to be. I think it's certainly not something to be ashamed of or to be afraid to talk about. But there are people here who didn't work here at that time, so they probably don't know that I walked that walk. But interestingly enough, they were also doing that, and they were very public about it on their show. And it was such a great release for me to have a place to just go and watch somebody else experience that exact same, down to that's the exact same medication I'm giving myself. So I think television just as a whole, if you can find a place where you feel like, yep, that's sort of where I'm at, or a book that's sort of where I'm at, it can be really powerful. And as silly as it sounds, that reality TV show for me really helped me kind of walk through some pretty uncomfortable and just really unknowns that I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Right on. Yeah, that's a great answer. That definitely works, right? And again, same thing happened with some of the earlier guests that I've interviewed, where they're like, I don't know, maybe it's just English teacher, right? They're like, I've got to bring a book because Greg's going to be mad at me. Well, everyone's got different things, right? The next thing I like to ask about, again, just to sort of give people an understanding and sort of open ourselves up a little bit to our colleagues, is this idea of like, what's a surprising fandom or activity that people wouldn't guess? So like, I always like to give an example so people know, like, I'll put myself out there as well. No one would probably guess this unless you were at the 4 Dubs discussions we had, but I love opera. Big opera fan here. Yeah, right? Like,
I did not know that.
You hear me walking down the hall listening to hip hop, but I also like opera. Like there's a variety there. So
that's awesome.
Can you think of a surprising fandom or activity that people would probably not guess unless you told them?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that people do know about me is how much I love music and Broadway and the theater, and I'm constantly singing, and there's, just music in my head all the time. But I think most people probably don't know that I have a background in landscaping, and I actually did that as a job through college. I put myself through college being a landscaper with a company. And so I am very, very comfortable with annuals and cut flowers and a little bit of arranging of those kinds of things. Extremely comfortable and very much enjoy putting together pots, gardens, and things like that of annuals. Where I had no experience was perennials, and so I probably people don't know that I'm pretty good in a greenhouse, and I have a pretty good eye for what goes together, and I have a pretty solid understanding of how things work and grow and heights and widths and what they do and what they'll attract and not attract. And it's something I really love doing. Unfortunately, my yard is not really conducive for a lot of annuals. I have a lot of rabbits and a lot of other, so I do a lot of pots and things that the animals can't get into. But I, until this past summer, had not ventured into too many actual gardens that animals could get through. Plus, I have dogs, so they tend to ruin things.
Yeah. You also mentioned, and it's another one of my favorite things, Broadway. Is there a specific Broadway show that you're like, that's my tops, that's the one?
I have a list of my top 5.
Okay.
And there's always in flux. The show that probably got me hooked when I was a little girl, my mom was on the board of a summer stock theater as a child, and even as an adult, she was in and out, and at one point was president of it. It's in a regional, and it's grown quite extensively now, and she's no longer on the board, but she supports them. And so I grew up backstage. I grew up in the catwalk. I was up. They had cabins. The residents lived in cabins, and each board member sort of adopted the cabin. And I was really fortunate that the people who lived in my mom's cabins every summer were very sweet to us. They're college kids, or they're just out of college, and they were happy for a home cooked meal or treats. And I learned about lighting and scenic design and some things from them because they weren't all actors. Jennifer Garner was there, and Michael Gross from Family Ties, Jane Howdishell, some really impressive actors, people who went on to win Tony Awards and movies and things like that, but we just didn't know at the time because, Jennifer Garner was in college when she was there. So I saw My Fair Lady as a little girl. My mom took me, my dad got sick, and so I got to go see it. I had seen all the children's shows, but I hadn't been to the grown-up show at night, and my mom said, the lights came off or down and the music came on, and she said, for 3 hours, you just sat there staring at that stage like you had never seen anything before. And I was hooked. And so My Fair Lady for sure, top 5. Last year I saw Come From Away, which is about the 9/11 attacks and the Canadian community that housed all of those, and the staging of that and the music and the storyline was amazing. And there's no intermission, which is becoming more and more common in some of these theater shows. They'll just run for an hour 45 and there's no intermission. So that was an interesting experience, but very powerful. I have been very fortunate to see a lot on Broadway itself, and so certainly some of those, the takeaways from that were amazing. Leah Caney and I went and saw Matilda, which I don't particularly love the storyline of Matilda necessarily. The music's pretty good, but it's the only time I've ever seen the entire cast who are on the album because it was so new. So that was a top 5 experience, not necessarily for the show, although it was amazing. That was just really cool to be able to say I've seen all of those people. So I have more, but Legally Blonde is my guilty pleasure. I'll see that 100 times. I love it.
Yeah, I too spent some time doing stuff with theater. And my mother was awesome about getting me into those shows when I was younger. So seeing like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Donnie Osmond in it.
Yes, front row.
Yeah, seeing Wicked with the original Chicago cast.
Yeah.
I took my brother to see Book of Mormon with the original Chicago cast, which was
one of my favorites.
So fantastic.
For that entire show. It's amazing. Those guys are geniuses.
I also, one of my very good friends is a upright bassist, and so he does a lot of music shows. Yeah. So like he did the Buddy Holly story where like he was like on stage and like the guy was like pounding on his bass. He did Cabaret, which was very awkward but very good.
Yeah, I can imagine seeing a close friend in Cabaret might be a little strange.
A little strange. But it's fantastic. I love musical theater as well. That's another great connection. I wouldn't have. We haven't talked about that before, so now we have something else
It's a huge escape for me, and I actually, it's one of the things I don't actually prefer to go with other people. Sometimes I am very comfortable going to a show like that alone, sitting by myself. No one talk to me. Don't unwrap your candy behind me. I don't want any noise. I can totally zone out and just be in the moment. And I don't turn my brain off very easily, and that is one of the few times where I'm actually able to just be fully immersed in it, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I have had similar experiences with classical music, and it's funny because I feel like the old man ever when I'm like, I don't want to go to rock shows anymore. Let me go see CSO and I'll be happy. Like Shostakovich, and I'm there. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think a great place to then go next, and I'm excited you wanted to answer this question because I was hoping everyone would. We're all lifelong learners, right? We're all in this building. We're all in this to win it, to continue to learn. And so you have something that you recently learned that you'd like to share with us, and I'm excited to hear what it is.
I did. So my COVID project was, as I mentioned before, I'm pretty comfortable in a garden, but not with perennials. I had no idea. I've never worked with them. It's not something that the landscaping company that I worked for did. We did more things like one of my high points was the beautiful marigold M I made in the Rochelle McDonald's drive-through. I had to lay it all out. I had to use a little mask to get all of the plants. It was a big drive-through area. So I had no idea what to put in my backyard, what would keep the dogs out of it, what would grow well together. And so I used my coworkers and their knowledge. So Barb White and Jen Miller have been really great about giving me help and advice. My Instagram follow for Jen's gardening was pretty daily, and I would get mad when she wouldn't post more. So I'm learning and I'm trying, and I did invest some money in some plants that spring, both through Kara and Christian's greenhouse plants, because I like being able to support them. But I also then purchased some things from places, and I split some things from people, and so that's my new thing. I'm learning. I have a Pinterest board on it, and I am learning a little bit every time I look at things of what goes together and what doesn't, and what worked in my garden and what didn't. And my little next door neighbor, who is 5, he enjoyed watching and telling me what was growing and what wasn't as well. He'd stand over the fence and say, no, and I'd move it.
Awesome. Another question I'm always interested in, because obviously everyone knows I'm a bit of a obsessive compulsive baker, but a favorite food either to eat or make, and why?
My favorite probably food to make, and I also like to eat it, is lasagna. Although Lee would tell me I don't make it right because I don't put egg in it. But it's my mom's recipe, and it's probably the thing that reminds me of home and is a little bit of a comfort food. It feeds a lot of people. I would eat it as a leftover, which I don't really like leftovers. So for me to have something that I enjoy cooking, that I enjoy eating, that I also could eat as a leftover is probably a pretty big deal. That's one thing that I really like. I don't really eat a lot of pasta. I'm not a big pasta eater, but I do like lasagna quite a bit. So that's probably the thing. We just started doing HelloFresh at our house. I was getting tired of having food in the fridge that just went bad. So between Isaac and myself, we picked some recipes, and I wanted him to do some more cooking. And so he's been engaged in that. And so that's been kind of a fun activity. And we've been trying some new things. So hopefully we can learn some new recipes from that too.
Awesome. Yeah, I spent a lot of my life not liking to cook, and have recently changed over to being like, cooking's pretty cool, pretty awesome.
I don't like the cleanup. I don't actually mind the cooking. I don't like the cleaning.
Fair enough. Last place I would like to go, and again, I just want to thank you for your time. This has been a great conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. But I'm really excited that you wanted to answer this one as well. Because when I wrote this question, I was like, everyone's going to want to answer this question. Who wouldn't? But maybe it's just my musician brain going in overdrive. If you could have a theme song, what would it be? And then would you want everyone to hear it, or would you want it to be only something that you could hear?
Well, I think probably whether people wanted to hear it or not, they would, because I tend to sing all the time. So whether it was in my head or not, you're going to probably hear it. And I don't actually have one song, but I just think you know, because I sort of live in the world of Broadway, I think in sort of like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, that TV show where she's constantly, you know, hearing people think in music, I pretty much can attribute a song to any moment that's happening. And I have a lot of powerful memories of, you know, moments in my life that were paired with songs. So I feel like I'm just a walking song all the time happening in my head, and I pick something up and I start singing it, or I make up a song. So I think it would depend on the day.
Right on. Yeah. There's I'm glad there's other people who do that as well. Like even trying to like shut my brain down and meditate, it's like, oh, and there's that verse of that song again in the back of my head that's just there. So
I can't meditate for that reason. I can't shut my brain down.
I'm glad it's not just me.
Nope. Nope.
Well, once again, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. This has been great. And obviously now I'm going to bug you a bunch about musical theater for the rest of the year.
I'd love to talk about it.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for
having me.